Everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We will go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Tara Thompson. I'm the Director of Creative Sonoma, and it's wonderful that we are gathered here this evening, finally, to launch the Fire Memorial Public Art Project in a meet and greet with the artist Cliff Garten. Um, I'm joined today by a team of amazing people who are part of this project in one way or another. We have our chair of the task force overseeing this project, Pamela Van Helsema. We have Karen Demarest as the project manager for this project. Cliff Garten is the selected artist for this project. And we're also joined by Elizabeth Vermilia, who is our trauma-informed specialist with a local organization, the Child Parent Institute. So Creative Sonoma is a county agency that was tasked with organizing and facilitating a fire memorial to commemorate the lives that were lost and to honor the community's resilience in the aftermath of the 2017 fires. And so we are now here at a moment in this project where people have had some experience with the fire, and we all approach the project from different places, different points of access. And so thank you all for making the time to be here to meet the artist and to hear about this project. So I will turn it over to Elizabeth for a welcome.
Thank you, Tara. I just want to do a little context. The process of community engagement around this is likely to elicit strong feelings and maybe strong memories of the events that have created the need for a memorial. Please know that that is normal, it's expected, and everyone needs care through this. So part of that care is that we don't talk about those experiences graphically, but we acknowledge that they are present, they are here with us, and there's room for us to feel together and support one another. So in that vein, I will turn this over to Pamela.
Thank you so much. I'm Pamela Van Helsema, and I serve on the Fire Memorial Task Force, which is a group that was commissioned by the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors to help guide and advise on this public art project. In October of 2017, my family fled Coffee Park. We lost all of our possessions on that night, along with thousands and thousands of people in the same situation in Sonoma County. And recovering from that night was a long and hard process, challenging. It also had many blessings as well. I'm sitting in my rebuilt home right now, very blessed to be here. I'm also very blessed to be part of this process of creating a lasting testament to what we have been through, what we've experienced, and to honor all that was part of that momentous time in our lives. And those who are joining me on the task force include others who lost their homes, some people who lost family members that terrible night, and also people who are first responders and people who are leaders in the arts. So it is a wonderful group of people, thoughtful people, and we've been involved in many advising on many decisions ranging from where this memorial should be located to reviewing all of the proposals from artists, not only throughout California, but through the nation and actually the world, and making a selection for this. And we did it with much care and thoughtfulness. And our next stage will be really being involved with you, our local community, so that this artwork truly reflects the heart and soul of Sonoma County and what we've been through, but also our future of resilience. So thank you for being here tonight. I encourage you to be involved not just tonight, but going forward so that we can truly make this public art piece our own, a meaningful part of our lives here in Sonoma County. And I think I'm going to turn this over next to Karen.
Yes. Thank you, Pamela, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm Karen Demarest. I'm so honored to be the project manager for the Fire Memorial. We have been at this for a few years now, and so this is a big moment for us. I want to say first, before we go any further, that we are going to be recording this webinar because there's lots of folks who will want to get to know Cliff as you're here to do tonight. And so we want to have that recording made available to everyone. Like I said, we've been at it for a while, and this is a big moment. We invested a lot of time in finding just the right location, and we're so happy that the site is at Nagasawa Park. We wanted really to choose the exact right artist for this project, and we know that we have in Cliff, and you're going to know that in a moment too when he shares with you his work. We also know that there are constraints. This is a county project funded by the county, also with a generous grant from the Community Foundation. But there are constraints in any project like this. There are constraints in the space, in the budget, in the timeline, and everything. And so we are here to really hear from you, to introduce you to Cliff, hear from you. We're going to have a community engagement 3 days when Cliff is going to be in Sonoma County, May 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. We're going to have opportunities to meet in person and to hear from you. And one of the reasons we selected Cliff is because of his the way he listens to community and integrates that into the design. All that said, we know we can't please everyone. It's just it's not possible. So we all have to open our hearts and temper our expectations so that we can have a memorial that really does what it intends to do, which is to honor the lives of those who were lost in the fires and to really recognize our resilience as a community. So let's get to the reason for this show. Oh yeah, the Q&A. So we really want to hear from you, and throughout, we encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A. I will be moderating the Q&A. Cliff is going to talk for about 20 minutes, so show you some beautiful images of his work. And then we're going to go to your questions. So please put them in the Q&A section, and we will moderate that. All right. It's my really great honor and pleasure to introduce you to Cliff Garten. He's the artist that we selected after looking at 80 plus applications. Cliff is here. He brings a combination of training that's really especially meaningful for an outdoor memorial. He has an MFA in sculpture from the Rhode Island School of Design and a Master of Landscape Architecture from Harvard. So he's not just thinking about an object, he's thinking about the entire place, how people move through it, how they gather, how they experience it over time. And he often describes his work as place-based, meaning he connects people to the place through materials, through story, and through the landscape. And his projects become spaces people can enter, not just something that they look at. So he'll be sharing with us tonight some of his previous work, all of which hold space for reflection and shared experience. But when we selected, the task force selected, it wasn't just his portfolio, it was with community and his commitment to listening and to how that shapes his work through what he hears from us. So we're so excited tonight that you get a chance to get to know Cliff and how he works. And then again, we will then field questions afterwards. So Cliff, I'm going to hand it over to you now. Oh, you're on mute.
Better? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. I have a very serious job before me because Sonoma County and Creative Sonoma have entrusted to me which is all of you basically, um, the task of working with you to make this memorial. Um, I when Karen said my work is place-based, that's really true. There's a term we use in sculpture called site-specific. I won't go into it, but it grew out of a lot of work that people did in the 80s. And it means that the work arises from the site, that it comes from a place. It might be the shape of the land, it might be that it's a really windy place, but it also comes from the social histories that are associated with that place. And this is a pretty big chapter in the social history of not just Sonoma County, but of California. Now, when I think I had come up and you might have notified me in December that I got the project, and then, 3 weeks later, the Palisades were in flames, and that's only 2 or 3 miles from my house. Uh, so it was a reminder to me of the power of fire, the power of a changing climate, and all of us who are going to face this. No one is immune from this. And especially in a place like California with its climate and its many microclimates, we especially have to learn how to live with fire. Um, the purpose of my work is to create a place that the community can use and the community can go to, and other people and visitors or friends, maybe someone's family from New York, can go to and get a deeper understanding of what happened and what was lost, and what maybe contemplate what that experience is like. And I don't know how I'm going to do that. Um, and I'm here really in the first phase of a project, I'm here to listen to everyone so I can figure that out. Um, you have to listen when you start the project very carefully. And that's one of the reasons that I'll be in Sonoma for 3 days, talking to all kinds of people in the community and everyone that I get a chance to talk to, so that I get that information. And for me, it's more a feeling. One of my talents is, besides, making sculpture, is that I'm able to go to a place and kind of get the pulse of it and understand it and derive the work from it. And that's true, especially true of memorials, but it's also true of all the other work I do. So in this first phase, I'm going to introduce myself, and I hope as many people in the community that will look at this. But I'm going to show you a really powerful memorial to start this out, and it's not about fire, but it's about the civil rights movement in America, and a seminal moment in the history of the civil rights movement, which many of you may remember or know, is the sanitation workers' strike in Memphis. These men who worked in the sanitation department carried these signs, which has now become pretty ubiquitous in all kinds of protests. But they were protesting for better wages and better working conditions. And it started after two men who were running a garbage truck took shelter from a thunderstorm in the garbage truck, and the crusher mechanism malfunctioned and they both died. this elicited this strike. During the strike, Martin Luther King was called to Memphis to come and support the strikers. And of course, as we all know, this is where he was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel. These men assembled here, and it's real interesting because you're going to see, I know they're here in this crowd someplace. You'll see them in a photo at the opening of this memorial, only they're in their 90s. But the memorial started at Claiborne Temple, which tragically just burned down after it had been restored. But this is the memorial site opposite the church, and it has these marble
Cliff,
gates.
we're not seeing your screen right now. If you're showing
Uh-oh.
images, we're not seeing it.
So you didn't see any of those images?
No, we haven't seen any of those images.
Oh boy. Well, I don't see my share button. That's the problem. I thought we had this. Oh, there it is. Okay. So, okay. So, do you see it now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So this is the image that I was referring to. These are some of the strikers who were striking for better wages and better working conditions. And these are the strikers assembled outside of Claiborne Temple, which is where all of the marches for the strikes originated. They would march from Claiborne Temple to City Hall. So my task was to create a memorial that honored the sanitation workers and Martin Luther King during this very important moment in history in the American Civil Rights Movement. Um, this is the site that I designed. It's, as you can see, it is what I call landscape sculpture, and I'll talk a little bit more about the role of landscape in your project. But these marble gates are the entry. They kind of face the city, which would be at your back. And the I Am a Man sculpture is the centerpiece of this site. And in back, you can see a dedicatory wall with the names of all of the people who worked in the sanitation department in Memphis in 1968. So it is a landscape, but it is also a sculpture, and it is a place which is meant to be used. And the place that I'm going to build for you is a place that we want people to go to, and we want people to feel comfortable in that place, and we want it to be a place for community. Now, there's a really powerful social history which is associated with this place. Um, and so these gateways, which are also seats, which are also tableaus on which you can see quotations from some of the strikers, from Dr. King, but the men and women who were part of this, said and did things, and those things are memorialized in etched into this marble. Now, this is Claiborne Temple, and this is before its restoration. And my intention was always to, unite the temple with the site, because all of the civil rights movement started in AME churches. They were very much a part of the civil rights movement. So there's a history there. So in a way, the memorial extends back into the city and its history and its architecture. So here's some of the quotes. You can see this is a profile of the marble gates. And this man was one of the strikers. So this was a big day for them because they were finally getting recognition for the stand that they took in Memphis. And this is a plan view of the memorial. Now, you can see the white marble gates here. And this black ring is black granite, and all of these little white things are text, and it's a timeline of the strike. So when you go to the site, you can read about the first event of the strike, and then over here, you get the last event when the city finally settled with the strikers and gave them what they wanted. Of course, by that time, Dr. King had lost his life. But it's very important that it's a place that asks for people to occupy it, that is pleasant to go to in a landscape context. All of these trees back here are willow oaks, and they're going to get really big, like the big trees in the background. And it's, of course, made in marble, bronze, and granite, so it's meant to last. So this is a close-up of one side of the I Am a Man sculpture. The other side, and you can see the text, which is etched in here. And the other side is polished stainless steel. So there's this very beautiful and important moment when you go up to read that text and you see yourself mirrored in this. Now, the text is the last speech that Dr. King gave before he was assassinated, the night before he was assassinated, in which he foretells his death in Memphis. So you read these words and you see yourself reflected in those words. And the speech, of course, was called "I've Been to the Mountaintop." At night, this is a beacon for justice, and it's illuminated not just the exterior, but from the inside. So all of the light comes through the letters and it glows. You can see the dedicatory wall in the background. Here's a close-up of the laser cut text. And here it is at night with the entry to Claiborne Temple in the background. Now, I'm showing this image because I'm very concerned about scale and what you might call approachability. You know, when I think at this time, we were in a big national debate and conflict about Confederate memorials, many of which are throughout the South and in Memphis and Tennessee, Alabama, even Virginia. But, one of the things about those older memorials is that, it's a guy on a horse and he's way above you. And I think that we have to start thinking about what kind of memorial are we going to make for future generations? And I really believe it's got to be something, if appropriate, with a monumental scale, which I think this is, but also it still has to be approachable. So that when we build this fire memorial, it has to be inviting. It has to be, a place for community. And there has to be something there to see, to touch, to feel. Maybe it becomes a catalyst for emotions, for healing, as is this memorial. Now, how do I make something like this? I make something like this by working with the community, studying the history, feeling the place, and then I had a partner, much like Creative Sonoma, called Urban Arts Memphis, who organized a series of 4 community meetings in different neighborhoods. This is the meeting in that church that I showed you, Claiborne Temple. And so people came and we discussed what kind of quotes that they would select would be on the memorial and how that would work. And so that was a way for me to collaborate with the community and yet still have control over how that information was given. And, the power of it is in the art. This is a young spoken word artist named Steve Fox who lived in Memphis, just revered the strikers. He knew them, and he here is doing a piece at that community meeting that was part of um, his performance of that information kind of back to the community in a dialogue. So there were all kinds of small dialogues happening before we could, do this. Um, these people, maybe this might be one of their relatives whose name they're touching. I don't know. Um, but when you enter this, there's the I Am a Man sculpture, there's the entry gates, the dedicatory wall, and they all interact. It's spatial. You move around, you touch the names. Um, you experience the image of the temple. And this woman is touching a poem we titled from a piece that Martin Luther King wrote, Where Do We Go From Here? Um, and this was a poem that was actually literally kind of led by Steve Fox and Brent Wiggins, who were rappers and spoken word artists from Memphis. And then everybody in the community kind of got involved. And I don't know how they made it, but they came out with a great poem. This is the opening of that memorial, and this is Reverend James Lawson, whose quotation is at the base of the I Am a Man sculpture. And he's I think he's 92 in this photo. This is 2018. But he was instrumental in bringing Dr. King to Memphis in support of the strike. He said, you've got to come here. This is really important. And these are the men with the medals are the strikers, all in their 90s. So it's a big day for them. And, this is the way we honor community and tell a story and tell a history and leave a place that honors that legacy. And then here everybody's cutting the ribbon. Now this is the extension of the story, okay? I wanted to build a place that was for free speech, peaceful demonstration, and this is 3 days after George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. So I had no idea that people would do this. They're actually following that granite ellipse, and the I Am a Man sculpture is like the image that everyone is kneeling to because they understand that in this context it means social justice and civil rights and freedom of speech. So this is the kind of place that, this to me is a big payoff, right? Because now the place is being used for social justice, for free speech, for peaceful demonstration. They're not out on the street breaking stuff. They're here because someone gave them a place to do this. So that's the power of place. You can't do this without making a place that has the sculpture as part of it. You have to do the place that people can go to. This is a more recent project from 2021 called Water to Wishes, and it's at the Martin Luther King Hospital. It's the behavioral center of the hospital, and they had these niches. This is an existing building. It was a renovated building for a new purpose. And so I filled in these niches with these columns. And the columns are LED illuminated and they change color. But down the center, and this is why I'm showing this project, down the center of each column is a river. And in that river is a text. This is the entry, the middle column. And that text was written by a poet and a community activist from the Willowbrook community. And it uses the river, which Willowbrook is now underground, and it's not daylighted, but it was the reason that everyone came to this area to settle. And so that was an appropriate part of the history, was to use the brook as an image in the piece. And then this is the text that these two community artists wrote. And so then that went into that became the substance of that river. And it's in Tongva, which is the native tongue of the Native Americans in California on the coast, and it's in Spanish and English. So it's translated on the three columns into different languages. This is a way that I work with community many times, is through text. This is a project in Jacksonville, Florida, which is a very conservative state. And it is done with 5 poets from Jacksonville. This building is the Duval County Courthouse. It's extremely large, and it's an extremely important mechanism of governance and the judiciary in Florida, in Duval County. So the task was to create sculptures for this site in front of the courthouse. And the project is called These Truths because the sculptures deal with justice, equity, equality, and freedom, using those words and quotations from the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And these poets and I sort of did this project together as a response to government and a response to civil rights and social justice. There are Yvette Angelique, Tim Gilmore, Ebony Payne English, Love Rains, and Andres Rojas. So what they did was they started with texts that were, from the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, and other texts that were important to the history of Jacksonville. And then they sort of, edited them and recreated them in their own way. And so that leaves this sort of record in front of the courthouse, and the piece is obviously called These Truths because we hold these truths to be self-evident. And so when people go into the courthouse, they read the words justice, freedom, and it gets illuminated at night. This is what you'd see coming out of the courthouse. And there they are in this park, which is a much larger project that was associated with this that I also designed. I'm showing this project because it's it's really a beautiful project in terms of the way that the sculptural gesture is very subtle, and it's largely horizontal, and it's the U.S. General Services Administration headquarters at 50 United Nation Plaza Federal Building in San Francisco. Many of you already know the General Services Administration is the administration that is responsible for all the federal government buildings in America. So it's a very big, powerful organization, and it also has a program called uh, Excellence in Architecture. And if you've watched over the last 20, 30 years, the buildings that they build have gotten a lot better. Um, and it also was run by the Art and Architecture program of the General Services Administration, which was one of the first public art or art and architecture programs in America. And it's a very good program. So they're always very good commissions because they are very serious about what they're doing. Now, this is a 20,000 square foot courtyard in the center of this building. And so I was tasked with doing the whole courtyard. And, it had to look, this is a building that was built in 1923 by the same Arthur Brown, the same guy who did the City Hall in San Francisco, if you're familiar with that, also on United Nations Plaza. But I had to fill it because it's a contemporary, it's a lead platinum project. Everything is super green and all the windows are operable. And so it had to meet all these like green standards, and it also had to cut a line between this classical Beaux-Arts architecture and a contemporary courtyard for the workplace. So people come out here and they come out down here, and then there are two fountains here, and there are these lines or ribbons, thus the name, on the ground, um, that have this kind of very bilaterally symmetrical Beaux-Arts medallion, and then they pop up off the ground and they make these benches. So the sculpture is really the entire courtyard, and the main sculptural move are these twisting benches which come off the ground. And so the gesture is largely horizontal, but it's also very heavily planted with, this is Huerca and Betula Jack Monti birch trees. So the birch kind of are a vertical movement that counters the horizontal movement of these. But it's about how people can come together, to take lunch breaks, to meet their colleagues, and use this place um, as it's a really fascinating sculpture that you can sit on and gather around. This is a granite fountain, one of the granite fountains. So again, it's about how landscape and sculpture come together to make a place, and how sculpture, makes these very subtle gestures along the ground plane, but are also places to sit. Uh, I took these during my site visit, and one of the things the committee asked me, if you remember, Pamela, what do you think of the site? And I said, I think the site is fantastic. I mean, I didn't skip a beat. I said, I think it's fantastic. And I think it's fantastic because it's a fire affected landscape. And the trees, the live oak on that site, are trees that are meant to burn and then, rejuvenate. And you can see that activity all over the site. So I think that's why it's a great place to make this memorial. This is the site that was presented as the possible site, and I think it's a good site because it sort of has a sense of containment with these oak around it, and it backs up against a small hill. And, because of our budget, it's already been cleared. So, we would just have to sort of not do entirely new site in the park, but repurpose a site that's there. So, it would have to be redesigned. But I'm very interested in making this memorial as a part of this fire affected landscape and also as a new place in that landscape that we go to honor the people who lost homes, loved ones in this, very significant environmental event that, we'll never forget and that we're memorializing here. So that's my presentation.
Thank you so much, Cliff. Really beautiful and informative. And I see we don't have any questions yet, so I think people are just very attentive to what you were sharing. So I'll give a moment for people to put your questions in the Q&A. And
Sarah,
then,
can I
yes.
mention that a friend texted me, a neighbor, and said, "Where is that site?" So just to reiterate, that's Nagasawa Park up in Fountain Grove.
Right.
Oh, up in
And
front.
that's the park that Creative Sonoma and the county and the city kind of focused on. While
Yeah.
you're writing your questions, just excuse me.
Okay. Yes. Um, Well, thank you to Annie who mentioned that she really likes all of Cliff's work. Thank you. I agree. And just a little bit more about the site. It is, as I mentioned, we've been at this for a bit, and I think it's significant that this site is a city park, City of Santa Rosa Park, but the project is run by the County of Sonoma. So, it's a collaboration that to me mirrors the collaborations that happened at the time of the fire between the city and the county. And so I think it's significant that we're doing it this way. Um, so
Could I add that, for those who maybe haven't followed along over the last couple of years, we did look at a lot of sites, and we had to pick a public site because we didn't have a budget to buy land. So we
mhm,
looked at county sites, we looked in eastern part of the county, we looked everywhere that was relevant to where the fire footprint occurred. And then there was pros and cons to every single one.
mhm.
And this one ended up being very special. And I think it's going to be a really wonderful place for this.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you. So let's see, we have Cliff, you're still sharing your screen, so maybe if you stop sharing your screen, we'll shift to Q&A. Um, Helene is asking if Cliff has already thought about materials you would use for this project.
Um, yeah, I've thought about materials in the sense of having landscape materials that sort of call attention to the place and bronze.
Mhm. Is there a reason for bronze?
No, material has to be um, appropriate to what is being expressed. So it's a memorial, you want to use honorific materials, but I think it's how those materials are used, which is more important than the materials themselves. You really want materials that are going to be durable and bronze and granite are like time-honored materials, but at the same time, I have a budget to work within, so that affects how those materials are used.
Yes. So I have a couple of questions as we collect any others. Cliff, when you begin a memorial project and you're doing the community engagement part of it, what are you listening for before you begin to imagine the actual design? Are there things specifically that you're listening for?
Well, I already have like thought of a whole bunch of things I could do on this site, but I have to put all that aside. And I think if you're listening for something, you're not listening the right way.
Mm,
I think my job is just it's my listening is almost like feeling. I listen to what people say, but I interact with them and I'm taking in the energy from the community, the energy of the place, different missions of different institutions, how people have come to grips with the tragedy, with their own situation, how they've started over. I'm just listening to everything.
I love that, not with a bias to try to find something that validates what you're already thinking, but with an openness to hear what others are saying and bringing. So that's great. For people who have never participated in a public art process before, what would you want them to understand and or how could you encourage them to participate?
Um, well, come out to all the events when I'm in town, and I'd love to meet you, and hear, what you have to say, and maybe you don't know what this thing is going to be, and it's a big mystery. Maybe you even have a specific idea about what it should be. I have no idea, but just come and we can talk.
Mhm.
It's just it's really it's a social, it's a social hour. Uh it's for people to, have good conversation and share things that are important to them. I'm sure Creative Sonoma will organize it very well, and we'll have a good time hearing what each other has to say.
And I think I just as the project manager and the and with the task force, we've been very cognizant throughout that this is also an emotional process and it as Elizabeth said at the beginning, there's naturally going to be feelings that arise and we just for everyone to know, Elizabeth will be present at these community engagement processes. So when people, whatever feelings might arise, if there's desire to talk to somebody, we're building that into our process because we're well aware of the sensitive nature. And I know you are, Cliff, as well. So Nina shares that lots of people in Santa Rosa didn't lose their homes, but are profoundly affected during and after the fires, and making a memorial to those who lost their lives and home is entirely appropriate. But will there be a way to honor the community sense of safety that was lost? Many of us did not lose our homes, but we lost our home. Home means safety to me, and we can never really truly feel safe in our home after the 2017 fires because the fires changed us. Thoughts around that, Cliff, like the broader sense of loss that the entire community experienced, that loss of feeling I have a safety in my home.
I'm sorry I can't remember the name of the poet, but I was reading California poets on the fires. And I remember, and I'm paraphrasing here, so it's not the exact quote, but no one can return to a life that is no longer there. And I thought that was pretty profound.
Mm.
And it's that sense of absence of, what you lost, or what, you want to go, it's like losing a loved one, you turn to talk to them and they're not there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hearing that the awareness and sensitivity to that. Tammy is asking, do you imagine displaying post-traumatic effects in the memorial?
I haven't imagined that.
Yeah. From an anonymous attendee, and to take nothing away from hardworking firefighters, in my humble opinion, we overuse the word heroes to describe what they did. There are many community members who knocked on doors of their neighbors and literally saved them. I hope we can give general recognition to community members who supported their neighbors, humans, and pets.
You know, I think that all of this, it has to come through the feeling of the place when you go there. Um, I think my first job is to make a community gathering space. And then the second job is to make, uh, to have in it, not fill it, but to have in it some kind of sculptural elements that are mnemonic or that, people can relate to in their own way. So it's a little bit like an archetypal image, like a circle or a cross. You come to it and you can hang on it whatever you want because it's open.
Mhm,
And so I'd like to create that kind of openness.
mhm,
Um, the idea of landscape and being open to the landscape and that the memorial is part of the landscape is a very important aspect of this to me because we have this fire affected landscape. So um, it's what you're going to see when you go there, and that's important because there's a regenerative force in that fire affected landscape in those trees. I mean, I saw it when I was there.
Margie is asking if you have thought about the transitional experience of visitors from the parking lot, from their car,
Yeah,
quite
um,
close.
I I'm really concerned about that because, and we talked about this. Was one of the, remember Karen, I took you aside and I talked, or was it Tara? I can't remember, but I talked about that site then needs to be screened by a row of trees that really separate it. It is very close to the parking. That's one of its negatives.
Mhm.
But I think if you had to kind of use the right tree and if you had a sort of a tight arrangement, that we could create a transparent, kind of screen that that worked with that. Is that what you were referring to?
I mean, Margie was asking the question, and I think that is it. What is that? How do you create a transition since the parking lot is so close? And
Well, I mean, I'd love to have a whole landscape where I could create a procession to the site, but we're not working, we're not working with a site like that or a budget like that. And the site is a given. And so I have to use my expertise as a landscape architect and as a sculptor to make that as good as I can.
well, that's why we're so excited to have you, Cliff, because that vision of seeing the landscape and knowing there are constraints, which is a natural part of any project, and these are the constraints we'll be working with here, that you see that as just that's part of it, and that your creativity and your vision and feedback from the community will help us get there. Um, Thank you so much. This is definitely not the last time we're going to be having conversations with you, Cliff. As I mentioned, May 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Cliff will be here in person. We'll have all different types of events. Please stay connected to us by our website. We have signups for community engagement will be available there. We'll keep you updated about what we're doing. We're going to be posting a survey that we hope that you will share, and you will take the survey and you will share the survey. Um, and I wonder if we can put those links in the chat too, so it's easy for people to join them. Oh, and what is the budget for the project? I'll let Tara take that. A couple more things. yeah, commenting on that, the sense of home and place and how life has changed. So yes, we're going to be doing more, and we really want you to participate. This is very, very important. So we're going to post this recording. You can share it with people in your neighborhoods. You can share it with people that might be interested in learning more about Cliff. What we're hoping for is we have this engagement, a community engagement process through the summer. We get to final design that the task force does approve sometime towards the end of the summer. And then Cliff does his thing and works his magic. We hope that the memorial is ready to be dedicated sometime at the end of 2027. So that is our goal, and to do that we need you. We need all of you to participate and contribute, so please do. Thank you so much to everyone. It's 8 o'clock. Thank you for giving your Monday evening to us. We really appreciate it. Thanks to you too, Cliff.
And please come to the community meetings. I want to meet you.
Yeah.